Thank you. Let the records reflect that this is the April 26, 2022 Public Works and Facilities Subcommittee, 1:30 p.m. here at the Cloverdale Library. With us, we have Councilmember Paula, myself, Vice Mayor Walter. We have City Manager David Kelly, Assistant City Manager Kevin Thompson, and we have our consulting engineer Vanessa. So the first item is the roll call. We just did that. Public comment. Anyone wishing to address the City Council on items that are not on this agenda may do so. Remember that the City Council cannot comment on those items, but seeing no hands here. And none out in virtual land, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
Consent calendar. We have the minutes of March the 22nd and
Oh, go ahead, Chair.
no,
Okay, Chair, I was just gonna add that there was an amended set of minutes.
Yes.
There was council member, subcommittee member, Paula noted some corrections, and I did go back and review the video and made those updates. So that there's amended minutes in the packet.
Excuse me, I just have to take this phone. Joe, do you have me?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go ahead and move that we approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second that. The council member.
Okay, do we take a roll call? I know that we are supposed to, but do we need to on this? I can't hear anything.
The mic just did something.
Oh.
Don't, I think it changed over to the, do you want me to try to fix that?
It's strange because we can hear you, Kevin. We just can't hear David.
Can you hear me?
The mic just went off for a minute. So how about now, Susie? Can you hear us?
I can hear
Okay.
Kevin perfect.
Can you hear me better?
I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay.
I don't know if that's projecting.
City Clerk Fontella, I was just noting that the chair of the meeting, Vice Mayor Gus Walter, noted everybody in the room, so we kind of did a verbal roll call. And so we can note that Vice Mayor Walter was present, Councilmember Paul was present, city staff members, David Kelly, myself, interim city engineer, public works director, Vanessa Apodatos present, as well as our community development director, Kevin Thompson, and joining us via Zoom is our park superintendent, Hector Galvan, our senior water treatment operator, Aaron Hernandez, and I think that's it. We do have a guest for an item, Brad Burrell, who will speak later on regarding item 6E.
I don't think any sounds coming out of the speakers, David.
Thank you.
Couldn't tell.
So Lori, I made the motion to approve the minutes and it was seconded by our city manager, Kelly. Let the record note that Vice Mayor or Vice Mayor and our chair had to step out of the room to take an important phone call. So we'll note when he returns, but the minutes will stand approved.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we'll move on to new business, item number 6. A, water supply update and drought response, city manager.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Councilmember Paula. I'd like to, Lori, if you can, could you allow Redora Bigatan in? She has her hand up now as an attendee.
Oh, yes,
Included in your packet is a memo providing an update on what's been an ongoing program to address the ongoing drought within the Upper Russian River. In response to the ongoing drought conditions, the State Water Board has been engaged in a planning effort to develop what was initially called a voluntary drought agreement. They've since kind of changed the name, in part due to feedback from legal counsels to call it a voluntary forbearance program. Redora, on behalf of the city staff, has been participating in the state board meetings on a weekly basis, tracking development of the forbearance agreement and the process in general. And what is included in your packet is a memo addressed to the city council, providing an overview of the process, including the kind of a legal analysis, as well as an overview of the current forbearance program and agreement. And so with that said, I'd just like to go ahead and turn it over to Redora, give us an overview. The intent is to ensure that this subcommittee was kept kind of up to date on this ongoing process in preparation for bringing an agenda item forward to council to discuss whether the council would be interested in participating in this forbearance program. It's still voluntary, and there are provisions within the agreement that allows us to exit that agreement should we decide to do so. But without further ado, I just like to go ahead and turn it over to Redora.
Before you go there, I just want to get clarification. If we fail or decide not to voluntarily participate, then we'll become under the state rule of whatever that is.
Right.
Is that right? So in other words, it's not a matter of we choose not to, but if we choose not to, then we could be mandated by the state.
And you're absolutely right.
I just wanted to get that clarification.
Right, Vice Chair. And part of the background to this effort is that we are currently subject to a curtailment order, and we have to meet minimum health and safety requirements that are provided for in that curtailment order. And in response to that, we filed a health and safety petition that enables us to meet our health and safety demands in our system. This is an alternative to that.
Gotcha.
And what we do want to do is part of looking at whether staff will recommend participating or not is to ensure that it offers some better opportunities for the city relative to curtailment. And so I think Redora is gonna touch on that. So go ahead, Redora.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that clear.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure I'm not muted. So we brought this item before the Public Works Subcommittee, and the agreement, the voluntary agreement, has now evolved. The steering committee have decided to move forward with the kind of a conservation program that is consistent with the stages that many of the agencies are using for water shortage conditions. The condition in the region is between a stage 2 and stage 3. If you may be aware that the governor issued an executive order that the state be in stage 2, which is up to 20% conservation. So the forbearance program is in draft form now for senior water rights holder, which is the city. The potential water conservation request would be up to 20%. And that is to encourage senior water rights holders to participate. And this is 20% conservation based on the city's diversions between 2017 and 2019. So it's pretty much equivalent to what the governor has requested that agencies conserve. And I think it's more favorable than the current situation that the city's in. And you'd still be consistent with the governor's orders. The alternative is, not participating in this voluntary agreement, and then you would be subject to whatever emergency regulations the State Water Board adopts. The State Water Board meeting to adopt regulations is on May 10. So, the city still has a little bit of time to consider participating in the program, but the information is evolving. We don't know how the final draft of the agreement. The agreement will need to be considered for adoption by the State Water Board for approval for inclusion in the emergency regulations. So those things are still in the process at this time. And after the state adopts that agreement for inclusion in the emergency regulations, this agreement would be brought to City Council for consideration, and if the city would like to participate in it. Before it goes to the City Council, it should be reviewed it should be analyzed to make sure that it's the best option for the city, looking at what if the city follows the state adopted regulations on May 10, or whether it opts to follow the conservation request that is part of this agreement.
Thank you. Any comments?
Yeah, so right now the agreement's still in process. The drought response group is continuing to refine the agreement. In terms of staff, we're tracking it closely, both with Redora and our team at Myers-Navi, in making sure that we're aware of what the impacts are to the city and our water rights. It seems like for the most part, those issues, the major issues have been addressed. It should be noted that we're a senior water right holder, so regardless, senior water right holders under the legal underpinning of water rights, we have the greatest entitlement to water. But what this program does recognize is that there are other water users within the watershed, and this is a way for us to collaborate and work together to try to meet the needs of all the water users in about as fair and an equitable fashion as you can. So in some regards, we could say, well, we're giving up a little bit, but certainly the alternative is curtailment, and it appears, at least right now, that that's curtailment is more restrictive than us participating in the program. So it seems like it's going to be beneficial for the city to participate in the voluntary agreement, recognizing that we have ability to decide if it becomes impactful to step outside the agreement. So we have that flexibility. So where it is right now, it seems like we believe that this is a viable option for us to participate. It is predicated that when the state board has their meeting in May, that they actually adopt this program, or allow for this program as part of their emergency regulations. And we think that's the step they're going to take, but they ultimately the state board has to make that decision. And we all know the state sometimes doesn't necessarily recognize that this might be a viable alternative. So I think the board meeting on May 10th will be kind of a critical deadline to determine if they do allow for this voluntary program. If so, come back to council. We should have a pretty good sense of where the agreement stands and be able to present that to council.
So Redora, just a quick couple, two questions. One is on the, has the state water board been involved in this to go as you put this plan together? So they're aware of it. It's not going to be
Yes.
something. So there's a fairly good chance they will move forward to adopt it, I would think.
Yeah, so the state water board has been participating all along in the development of this agreement and water conservation program. And they've actually been sponsoring the facilitator to help the region along. The state water board staff had indicated that they're preparing the board agenda item and will include language that allows for an off-ramp off emergency regulations should an agency opt to participate in this voluntary program. That language has not been developed yet, but it will be part of the package for the May 10 board meeting. They don't think that the agreement is going to be ready for the May 10 meeting. The agreement itself will be brought to the May 24 board meeting. And this is a very recent information. So David doesn't have this information yet, but we found out late yesterday that the agreement will not be brought to the May 10 board meeting, but it'll be brought at a later date to the board.
The other question I have, Redora, is we talked a little bit about emergencies and situations that are outside the city's control, such as firefighting with the potential wildfires and the use of water that comes outside of the ability to regulate, at least as far as a city. Now, how does that fit into the equation of this usage under the MOU? And we talked a little bit about getting a provision put into the MOU that discusses that.
The agreement carves the calculations, I should say, for the water conservation carves out emergency water supply. And there's a kind of an allocation for the minimum human health and safety needs. But if there's a fire, that's a demand that's on top of everything. And it doesn't restrict the city from fighting fires. It provides, the regulations allow for that. So that's not something that I think would be too concerning for the city, because the regulations allow for emergency use and wouldn't forbid you from diverting, or wouldn't curtail you from diverting for emergency use such as fire support. But it's more for your normal use.
Great, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Any questions?
No, I nothing to go back on that. But thank you for stepping in for me, and let's move to item 6.
We might want to see if anybody has any comments. I didn't ask for public. I'm sorry.
Okay, seeing no hands anywhere, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item.
Thank you, Redora.
To the next item, which is item number 6B, South Cloverdale Infrastructure Assessment Report. Kevin, is that you?
Yeah, sure, I can take this. This has been in the works for, 2 years now, but we finally have a draft. This kind of came out of all the development that was occurring on the south end and us needing to really understand the impacts on the system and how to condition these projects. And so GHD has put together this report that we're hoping to take to council for final adoption pretty soon. It's been reviewed by Vanessa. This really was kind of the first step in a 2-step process where we're going to consider an assessment district for the south area so that we could get the infrastructure put in and get reimbursed as development occurs. But that is a separate step with a different type of consultant. But this is really the first step, identifying the needs for all the infrastructure down there based on the current land uses. So they looked at what the general plan was anticipating to happen there as kind of a basis to say, okay, well, this is industrial, this is commercial, what type of water use, what type of sewer traffic models and all of that. So it's really an important tool for us as we develop to the south and as projects come in annexation. Some of the projects have come in and, we had a little bit of trouble conditioning those, like what size sewer were they gonna need or this and that. So this is really a more definitive look at the development there. So again, it's 2 years in the making. It was budgeted a couple of years ago and we're finishing it up now. And hopefully we'll get it to the council for final adoption. I don't know, David, if you had anything else to add to that, but
Thank you, City Manager. I think to add to Kevin's remarks is way to look at this report is really, it's kind of an update to the master plans for this specific area. And when I say master plans, I mean your water master plan, your wastewater master plan, your storm draining master plan, and your street master plan. So it was a way of really trying to look at all the infrastructure improvements that are being necessary for future development of the Southwest planning area in a comprehensive fashion. I think it provides some very good information that will guide future development. It's notable too that it does identify where there is some deficiencies or infrastructure that's undersized. So that's a representation that with full development of the planning area, we'll need to look at and plan for upsizing or upgrading some of the infrastructure. Particularly, I think there's some bottlenecks, I think, on the wastewater side. So the planning effort that we engage in, I think, is very valuable, not only in terms of guiding us in terms of conditioning future development, but also ensuring that we're addressing any capacity issues that may arise in the future in certain segments of the line. There was quite a bit of testing that was done to look at flows and things like that. So the engineering level analysis is really encompassed in this report. So it's very helpful. There as Kevin Thompson alluded, there's other components that now we need to bring forward if we want to formally establish a district in that area. What we were looking at was establishing what's called a community facility district rather than what we've done traditionally, a landscape and lighting assessment district, because that mechanism allows for provision of cost of services on a taxpayer's bill rather than this annual assessment process, and enables us to cover things like long-term street maintenance, police services, and
Parks,
other types of
parks,
services and
everything,
parks
yeah.
that are necessary to. It is going to put a burden on our general fund to help pay the future growth, pay for itself basically. But that's kind of the next step, and this provides the key data to help again guide that development. So there's a lot of information in this report. I want to thank Vanessa for her comments and her team looking at it, and of course Kevin for leading up this effort. It has been quite a bit of work. One thing I did want to share that, because I know Councilmember, you raised it about that stop sign on the overcrossing. The traffic analysis that was done actually gave us some background on why Caltrans put that stop sign in. And the traffic consultant that was engaged in this effort actually brought that issue up. And it was related to the intersection of the overcrossing at the boulevard and that traffic queuing that occurs.
Yes.
And while the traffic consultant at JC couldn't say for absolute certain, but they think that the Caltrans made a decision to put that stop sign in to help relieve some of that traffic queuing at that intersection, because that intersection is starting to reach at certain peak times experiencing what they call level of service, or LOSF, meaning that people are experiencing longer wait times. And so at least the consultant alluded to the fact that Caltrans probably actually is monitoring, understands that, and that's why they put that stop sign in. That's a separate issue, but I just wanted to point that out, that was kind of something that came to light when we were looking at this study.
So when you said the intersection, if I could, through the chair, you're speaking of Cloverdale Boulevard and Treadway and Santana right there?
Actually, at where the overcrossing
Starbucks.
at the boulevard. So, right, just south of the
Just as
Starbucks, right?
Yeah, but a lot of that's generated by those new signal lights, as we talked about. And hopefully some of that will be mitigated when we convert it over to the flashing amber for the left turn, because I see that backing up.
Yeah, I think it's also left turns, so heading south. And I think, again, some of this is future forecasts with traffic that, obviously we're Vintners Co-op now, so more truck traffic going south. There's the Renner. So I think they're seeing all of those things. And again, that wasn't the purpose of this
Sure,
report. It seemed to, in that analysis, it seemed to point to why Caltrans made that decision, was to help maybe alleviate some of that queuing, because you make cars stop, it allows cars to go, and it kind of reduces some of that backup. The suggestion being that, I think if you read the report, that signalization in the future could be warranted there at that crossing, and of course that's, with the new signals, we'll really have to kind of look at that in the future. So again, the report's valuable because it gives us that information. This is something that we might start seeing more impacts there, and determine what are the appropriate solutions, whether another traffic signal is really something we want to consider as a city or not.
Well, that'd be my last choice. That's a mess over there right now. That needs to be, fixed. So
Right.
we'll talk about that.
Well, when I get the final copy, there's a few little things being tweaked. We'll put it on the council, and we still have a little scope with GHD, so they can give us a presentation on their findings and what this is.
But it would be helpful to get that, hopefully when we move forward to, again, make those modifications to the existing signal lights, to kind of give that a chance to see how that relieves some of the backup. I really think it's going to make a significant change in that, because it really does back up people trying to make those left turns.
Have them come take their stop signs down now.
Just take those signals out and start over. Let's move them. We'll move them down to Hillsburg Avenue. Boulevard. That's where we need them.
So just a couple, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not. Thank you.
Just a couple things before we move off of this subject. David, you had mentioned parcel tax. Now, when you say that, you're referring strictly to those parcels that are within that area.
That's
So it
correct.
would not be a citywide one, so they'd have to vote on it. We've let quite a few, I know definitely Vintners Co-op. I'm not sure about Renner, but we let them move forward with their project with the agreement that they would come back and do their heavy lifting on this infrastructure plan as well. Am I correct?
Well, in the one big concession the city made for the co-op was not undergrounding the power lines. And we did get a deposit from them, which ultimately would go into an assessment district, or we would use it in the future for some other.
Undergrounding?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
now, we have money in our fund, I think it's 200,000.
Our Title 20, I forget I
Yeah,
think there's more
that's
than
on
that.
here, The one that we.
The
talked
Rule
about.
28, right?
Right, so is that money that they gave us part of that
No.
nest egg that we have set aside?
No.
I would consider it a separate chair, and the reason being is the deposit that they provided was really to be targeted to undergrounding the utilities in front of their building. So if council did authorize a undergrounding project that encompassed that area, well, then you could put it together. But if you wanted to do an undergrounding project, let's say on East Second Street, for example, then that money wasn't necessarily intended to be used for other project areas. So where we were thinking that, I think the premise being that that deposit would go towards some of the assessment district costs that would be identified as part of the study and help, be kind of that property owner's contribution. And I think to your point, Chair, what was included in the conditions of approval for both Bumgarner, I think the Dry Creek Rancheria housing project, the Vintners Co-op, and I think that was it, but was a condition that they would not protest being part of the CFD.
So they won't object to the parcel tax.
The idea being, we want to, it's a landowner initiated assessment, so you really want to try to establish a district while there's still one property owner.
Right.
So before, for example, Bumgarner, you have a bunch of homes, and now all the property owners have to vote on it. Not to say that there's not good reason for them to do that. They might still have their, goodness of their heart, seeing that those dollars will help pay for improvements that benefit them. But that's always a tough subject.
Yeah, and there's like the Baumgartner project, they're putting in a lot of improvements in themselves. So they're putting in all their undergrounding, and so theirs would be more of an ongoing maintenance versus, that upfront big cost of.
Well, I know on that, I think it's Prop 72, we don't put a lot of money set aside to do undergrounding,
Yeah.
but, and we could be in jeopardy of losing it if we don't use it.
Is that Rule 20?
20.
Rule 20, yeah, no, okay, so, if we targeted that area to use that money, I just think if we could combine it, what was put into
What
fund
we
by
have.
the co-op business, we could go a lot further. Plus, they're still not going to object to the parcel tax. So we need to think about that.
The tribe is very interested in the assessment district because they're putting in some pretty expensive infrastructure that they want to get some reimbursement back as development occurs, although they're really the biggest player down there. There's a lift station identified, which is very expensive, that they're agreeing to put in with the understanding that as the things develop, they'll get reimbursed.
Yeah, the school district is down there too. I don't know if they're exempt from that parcel tax.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something that we'll have to analyze. And of course, school district, we don't know what their plans are at this point in time. So this study used general plan analysis. So any changes in terms of from what their proposed demand would be on wastewater, water, storm drain, have to be kind of evaluated against what is proposed from a general plan. I think it does a pretty good job of at least analyzing that there would be future industrial and residential development. So in some regards, it would probably be pretty much captured whatever the school district impacts are there, but we'd have to wait to see and understand what it is that they propose to be developed there and what impact it would have on our infrastructure.
Joe, any other questions before I open public comment? I don't see anyone looking to make a comment on this item, so why don't we go ahead and move along to item number 6C, the quick claim for to the county of Sonoma for the Crockett Bridge bicycle and pedestrian improvements project.
All right, I'll start and I want to acknowledge the work that our interim city engineer has been doing in terms of coordinating with Sonoma County Department of Public Works on this effort. We've been requested background is Sonoma County is actually working on a bicycle and pedestrian crossing on Crockett Bridge. The primary funding source for the project is federal funding. One of the key requirements of that federal funding is that there's no right-of-way acquisition and it's being constructed on county property. Well, the landing for the proposed pedestrian bicycle bridge is at Cloverdale River Park. And what they've asked is for us to quick claim a portion of the area that's within the city between roughly between Cropper Road at the entrance to the cemetery and the entrance to River Park. And there's an exhibit in the packet kind of outlines and shows that area. We wanted to bring it to the subcommittee ultimately for a recommendation because we think it needs to come to council to support approving the quitclaim or authorizing either your city engineer or city manager to sign it to provide to quitclaim that property to the county. The one item that's not addressed here, but we've been we've communicated with the county in regards to was ensuring that our interests and not only existing interests, but also our future interests are protected in the grant deed by carving out a provision that any future infrastructure, that we have the right to place any future infrastructure within that area that the county is requesting we quitclaim to them. What that enables us to do is just to make sure that if we ever want to put in a water line or any other type of underground infrastructure, that we have the right to do that. If you don't do it, that doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means the county's response is, well, you can apply for it. And I guess our perspective was, well, if we're going to give you the land through a quitclaim, we just want to make sure that our rights are reserved for any future infrastructure that we'd like to place in there. Make sure we've got, of course, the access easement for the river park and our water treatment plant. So our city attorney is very aware of that, and he's got some pretty simple language that's going to provide to the county to make sure that that's in the quitclaim itself. So I think with that, we can really address what I think our main concerns or issues were. And it's really just a policy decision for council whether you want to support the quitclaim. I think from our perspective, as long as our issues are taken into account for any future improvements, that we're okay with this.
So they're gonna allow us to do that?
Well, the county's asking us to quitclaim it.
No, I know that, but how about our future rights to run a water line through that
They've
area?
indicated, so traditionally, they don't do that.
Right.
They've made that quite clear, but we kind of indicated that was a position we felt was really important for us as a city to have that.
And they're on board with it?
And they're on board.
Okay, yeah, because I wouldn't want to see it come forward without that. Because at some point, we're going to be, I'm sure, looking at dropping a well over on that east side of the river. And the pipe's already under the bridge for the water, so now we have to connect it and run it down the road there to the water treatment plant. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And they've said, well, you can apply for a personal permit, but that's discretionary, and we'd rather not.
we don't know who's going to be sitting down there in supervisors' chambers. So,
Right.
yeah.
We don't, by any means, we don't want to hold up the project. We think it's a very valuable and important project. But we also likewise want to make sure that the city's interests are taken into account, especially if we're being asked to give up land. It will be a quitclaim easement to the county.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I definitely, I'm happy that you had a conversation with the county and they seem on board with it, understand it. I wouldn't want that to be a deal breaker because I really think the pedestrian safety across that Crawford Bridge is huge. It's a very unsafe area for people to try to walk or bicycle right now with those rigs. So I know because we worked on that many years ago with the county, trying to get that in place. And it's just kind of, slowly moving along like a turtle, but I'm glad we're at a point. So I don't want to see, I really agree with getting this in place, but I just don't want to see that be a deal breaker, even to get this much needed pedestrian safety thing in there. So I'm happy that the conversation's taken place, and I certainly support getting that in there. But I just don't want it to be a deal breaker as we get down that road. So
well, maybe there's another way we could do it too, where we continue to retain ownership.
Yeah.
We do the work, they reimburse us, we subcontract with the same fellow that's doing that. I don't know if that's
well, it sounds like
too
we got a plan.
complicated.
Anyway,
but
do you need anything from us?
Well,
other
just,
than-
we were just, we want to put on for information. If you support it moving forward, we'll bring it to council.
yeah.
And I think it could be a consent item unless we feel like it needs to be.
No, I think it's consent. Yeah.
Well, I would like to discuss it. Let's put it this way, if for some reason they don't grant us a future easement, then it's gotta be pulled from consent, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
But if it's all the Ts crossed and the Is out of the way we want it, then fine, put it on consent.
Okay. We certainly think that that's the route, and if that becomes a sticking point for any reason, we'll put it on the council agenda, or we'll put it on the regular.
Good, okay.
Perfect, thank you.
I see no hands, so why don't we move on at this point to the restrooms, the plaza restrooms.
I put this together for the next couple items, just to,
And before you get into that, with the restroom, I did have the opportunity to talk to Mark Tharrington from Friday Night Live, and I told him what we were looking to do. Because my big concern is having those restrooms so close to the back of the stage that it inhibits the performers up there from performing because of all the noise and the foot traffic back there. And I'm not gonna put words in his mouth, but I will. He kind of paraphrased and he agreed. So he thinks if we could push it back a little further, to give a bigger pedestrian area back there, it would be the better choice.
did he want it on the other side of the fence?
No,
or-
he just wanted to push back a little bit, and I don't know how we could push it back without putting it on the other side.
Yeah, the one thing is the back side has a door. that
Yes.
It could swing in. So I think we would need at least 3 feet between the fence and the edge of the building at a minimum.
Well, he wants to push back into the parking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he doesn't want to pull it out, because then it'd be too close to the stage. And you know how it is, you're in the restroom line, and granted, they're gonna be unisex, and, the hand washing facilities are gonna be outside,
Yeah.
but you get back there, you start talking, you talk louder as the band plays louder, and next thing you know, it's a competition for who's got the audio there, so.
Yeah.
And David, I know you're concerned that the lot line, we may have to do a lot line adjustment. And if we ever decide to sell that city hall property, it could cause a problem, but I don't care about that. If that's 30 years from now, let the new council deal with it. We need to, I think, design it for our use right now, today. I mean, my goodness, we could be waiting 20 years to sell a farm also. So I'm in favor of trying to design it so it could go back.
We'll relay that. We have Mo Engineering. It will increase these costs because it'll mean longer water lines, longer sewer lines. It will reduce parking, of course, at City Hall, which is now
Yeah, but some of the,
it's been a premium.
some of those spots aren't used at all at City Hall.
They're starting. to
Well,
get
with
used a
all
little more.
respect, Mayor, we haven't even, we don't have adequate parking substantial. But that, I mean, we can park elsewhere. We can, I used to park out on the street. I can park out on the street. I'm just saying, recently we don't have that.
Just before I lose my train of thought pretty quick here.
Yeah, I'll write it down for you.
Can we get a schematic of the way our chair's explaining it versus the way this calls for it? So we could kind of see what it looks like and the distance from the stage in both schematics and what that means on the lot line adjustment. Because, I'd like to kind of see it visually, and it's kind of hard when you go back there because, it's so that if they could just kind of put together like a little schematic that we could kind of visually look at how it looks and what that means on the city hall footprint.
Yeah, no, we have Mo Engineering, so we can certainly do that.
That would
I
be
mean,
helpful because then we could really take a better look at
We'll
that.
show how it lays out.
Yeah.
Show layout.
Yeah.
We were trying to kind of avoid encroaching, but I understand the direction of the subcommittee.
I mean, honestly, if it was just say the front of the restroom was right where the fence is now, and then the restroom went into, I mean, we're not gaining that much, so I don't know.
Well, that's why the schematic would be
Yeah.
helpful to really see. I mean, it all sounds good, but what does it mean?
I didn't think of that. I'm glad you talked to Mark. I hadn't thought of that, so.
And when you stop and look at the visual on Zoom or whatever of that area, it looks like where the bus stop is going all the way back to where the fence begins, is pushed back, and then the fence brings it out. and then City Hall, not City Hall, Police Department pushes it back. So I'm not so sure where the lot lines are there anyhow.
Well, I can convey that to our project manager.
Yeah.
And get some diagrams.
That would be helpful. And we could really see the distance and what that all means and what we're gaining. And
Yeah. Because as it is, I mean, some council members, myself included, think that whole plaza area is too small. And we don't want to take up spaces with bathrooms. So,
Well, just to update you, we have submitted our deposit check.
Good.
But it is a 6-month lead time,
So
so.
I don't think there's any hesitation that we want the restaurant there. It's just a matter of tweaking it, how it's gonna fit.
Yeah.
If we had money, we could take that empty dirt lot next door and put the bathrooms over there and expand the park and do all those. But unfortunately, the development went bye-bye and took away the ability to do that.
and I assured him, David, that we would not be starting that project until after Friday Night Live concludes this year.
Right, that's the plan. I think what we're trying to do is get the specs all ready to go. We've got the restroom package ordered, deposited, so it'll just be a function of, we'll get the bids, or the plans completed, put that out to bid if we need to. We may be able to do that through an informal process. And then get that contract in place so that once Friday Night Live's done, we can issue notice to proceed and get the contractor in to do the underground work and then schedule at that point, the restroom facility should be being done, constructed, and it's just a matter of them bringing it in
Walk it down.
to site it. And so, hopefully, since we're doing this late work now, the timing might work just perfect to be able to kind of get that in and start it right after Friday Night Live completes in late
September.
September. It would be ideal because, we might still be in that, a little bit of dry season and be able to, get started on the work without having to worry about rain and get that.
Who owns the dirt lots on the
We're-
south side?
Savannah,
Do they still own that?
Well, it's, I just talked to Ron Pavelka about that and he's really trying to research that. It went to probate. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to identify who the owner is. It was some trust, but he's working on it. So if he finds out, I'll let you guys know. Yeah.
with Don, that owns the Post, I think it's called, the clothing store there.
Yeah.
I've heard a couple times from him that he has a 10-year lease and he has first right of refusal to buy that property, which includes parking lot and the building.
Includes both buildings, the one to that's fronts on the boulevard as well.
Is that the trading post you're talking? Oh, yeah.
That's the Post,
yeah.
yeah. But
Well, it's the post, but also where the laundromat includes the laundromat.
Oh, wow.
now, there was somebody that whispered in my ear that the city would be able to circumvent that. And we could buy it under a eminent domain, still honoring his 10-year lease that he has, and maybe 20 years, 30 years from now, we would have the option to expand it. But we have to protect his rights.
So going back to those empty lots, though, can we find out, are they separate parcels? I know there's more than one parcel there, so it'd be kind of nice to see.
Yeah, I can look that up for you.
Yeah, because obviously, if we wanted to really take a serious look at that one parcel, because there used to be a building there that burned. Yeah. So it would be good to see. Because once they're built on, there's no way to expand that plaza.
And under eminent domain, you don't have to take the whole parcel. If we developed a plan for that area, which encompasses the kind of the gravel parking area now, that could be the subject to it. Could be a smaller area, leaving the buildings that are currently there for the current project.
I'd like to get more information on it.
Yeah, it's a tough one for some reason.
Well, not only is it blighted, it's just a dirt lot right in the middle of the damn town, but also there's a critical need for that property to expand the park. Because that property wasn't there. There's no way to expand the park after that's built out.
And what we did want to cover with the
Unless we want to
subcommittee,
go across the street to an empty lot on the other side. of the building.
Which is another blighted area.
that one of the, with the upcoming budget discussion with council, we did want to cover and provide an overview of the fund balances for both the Quimby and the park and restroom, or the park and recreation impact fee account. Between those two, we've got just short of $1.1 million in our fund balance. The restroom is anticipated to currently it's got a total cost of $342,000. That's preliminary number, obviously subject to change if we as we move things around. So that's roughly a third of that $1.1 million. The next project is basketball court. We're going to talk more about that budget. The total cost of that project is about $460,000. The budget doesn't identify a contingency, but there might be room within the budget for contingency. And then last but not least is the pickleball project, which we've identified at a cost of about, I think the agenda report in the packet said $152,000. So those three projects, not including the per capita grant that would provide a portion of the cost of the basketball courts, would be about $1 million. So we have a little bit of wiggle room within our impact fee account. So we just wanted to give, as part of discussing these three projects today, just give the subcommittee an overview of where we stand. We are proposing to fund these projects pretty much entirely using impact fees. Of course, that's at the discretion of council. You could use general fund or even dedicate measuring park funds towards these projects to help offset the cost. And of course, the grant that we have for Second Street City Park is right around $200,000. We expect with the per capita grant, so that will reduce the burden on the impact fees by about $200,000. So we're looking at about $800,000 net, recognizing that the way the grants work, it's always reimbursable, so we pay for them and then we get reimbursed. So that's
So David, going to the basketball courts, I thought we had a $200,000 grant. I was unaware that it was going to be any city funding
well-
to go towards that project.
Yeah, I can give you an update. It's coming back more expensive than we thought. These are pretty current
It's a
numbers.
lot more expensive.
It is a lot more.
Yeah.
This is really a very deluxe 2 basketball courts, and it probably will be cheaper than what is shown here. But this is what we got as our engineer estimate from Mo Engineering. We can re-agendize this if we want to scale this back. There are some things we could not include: the fence, the lights. We could do 1 basketball court. There are options to bring that number down, but this is what came in as our engineer's estimate for the 2 courts. So 170, about 180 of that is paid for by the grant. And so the cost to us for the 2 courts would be 282. I know
That's a big number for.
Hector, I don't know if you want to add anything. We did just, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we had an early meeting with Mo Engineering, and he did say that the numbers were a little high. But like Evan mentioned, there's things we can do to bring this cost down. One of the reasons why the cost is a little bit higher is because we were trying to accommodate 2 full-size basketball courts. And by being able to stretch it out, we then get into drainage issues in the park, and also a large storm drain that is right under the proposed pad, which we are proposing to, reroute the the reroute the storm drain, just because it doesn't really make sense to build something new over an old storm drain. And according to Mo Engineering, the current storm drain, which is the main drain from the park, is not in really good condition. And so all this cost associated with that kind of, get a little higher if we go to 2 basketball courts.
So if I could, through the chair,
Please.
Vintage Meadows was originally designed for 2 courts and it was funded for 1, if you remember when we go way back because of funding. Would it make sense, or did we at least take a look about putting a second court in Vintage Meadows and just doing the 1 court at City Park? Still providing 2 courts, and it may not take as much as infrastructure relocation in that particular strategy. Because I know and this was way back and I'm going by my foggy memory, but we didn't have enough funding in place to do the 2 courts. So it was scaled back. It was designed for 2, scaled back and provided 1. And that's really the only court that we have in place today. That's a real court. But it might make sense to take a look at that and add the second court there and do the 1 court at the City Park, still providing 2 new courts and maybe a fraction of this cost.
Yeah, the only wrinkle with that potentially is the grant application was very specific to that location. So we might not be able to use, the grant continue at 2nd Street and then consider other impact fees for the other one.
Well, we could take a look. I'm just thinking it might take a look and maybe is there a way to amend the grant because of the high cost? Is there?
Yeah, I'm sure there is a way.
I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here. It just seems like if we could still provide this without maybe at a fraction of this cost, or at least reducing it a little bit, it may make sense
Well,
to at least visit that.
We could re-agendize this for the next one, have Mo sharpen it, maybe we can have some options for you to consider, like we can defer the lighting, the fencing, and some of the,
Yeah,
to get it
I'd
down.
also like to just take a look, are there at a location alternatives?
Yeah,
So
okay.
we just
Well, and just the question I had was, that is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
460,000, and I was under the impression that we were going to use some of the existing cement pad that was there.
Yeah, Hector, did you met with Mo? What was the story with using the existing?
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so we also talked about the possibility of refurbishing what we got there. And we would have to get a contractor that specializes on concrete grinding and resurfacing. So they would go in there and regrind and then resurface the existing basketball courts. And then add, some of these other items that we have listed on the budgeted estimated cost. But that's another option. Yes.
Yeah, I think what we would like to do as staff is, these numbers literally came in
Last night.
yesterday, and so we're doing our best to try to just give a picture to the subcommittee, because we've got budget coming up and understanding as we make progress on these projects, what the impact is to our fund balances, and we want to try to get, what we're trying to do is make sure these numbers are in the budget, so we're in good shape in next year. If they're not, that's okay. We can come back and revise and update accordingly. But we have more work to do, and we'll I think the recommendation is on the basketball court specifically, we'll agendize it as a specific agenda item with cost estimates and some different options, and looking at Vintage Meadows to see if maybe putting another one there makes is a feasible option.
Well, I know it was designed for that. So I think it's all set up that we just need to do it. I mean,
Right.
And that may be a whole lot cheaper than trying to reconstruct one over there and still provide what we're trying to provide to the community. I strongly support the 2 courts. That's not the issue. I'd just like to see us not spend as much money, because it takes it away from other projects as we move forward, so.
Yeah.
And as I look at the restroom project, 342,000, I mean, I remember when we started looking at this, it was 110.
That was with the Portland
With
move
the
originally.
Portland move.
That was for just the packaged unit, not including.
And the
The
same
site
with the
improvement costs.
pickleball ball court, that's up to 140. When we first started, we thought, oh, 60 grand, we'll be able to do that. And, it just, the cost of everything just seems to be exploding. And
Yeah, the bad part of this whole thing is next year to be higher.
I know.
Gus,
So it's like.
the infrastructure for the plaza restroom, we just got that back from Mo. They're talking 67 to 70,000 to get the sewer and water there.
Mm.
So then there's the cost of paying for Mo
Yeah.
as well as the unit, which is 200.
No, I already know the
Yeah.
answer, but I gotta ask it, does Mo know of any grants available for recreational events that can help us with something like this?
Well, the big one is the per capita, and we got
We already got
that.
How about some of the other projects? Is there grant money out there for any of that?
I haven't heard of any recreation grants other than the per capita one. I don't know.
We got
Well, we definitely, I mean, there's a lot of grants out there, so that's something we gotta
to look at.
take a
Yeah.
look at.
Well, one of the things we had talked about was every time we have a company look at something for the city, we ask them, is there grant money out there for this? And if there is, can
We-
you write the grant?
Yeah, so pickleball, it's been a staff-driven project, so and this one, well, and the rest of the pickleball, I mean, we've got actually quotes in hand, so we're the costs that we've identified are pretty reflective of actual costs. It's just.
That one's ready to go.
Yeah, for 2 courts, that seems, to me, it seems reasonable. I'm thinking 2 courts for basketball, you look at the numbers, is quite large, so.
Yeah, and I don't think the basketball court is used at the city park as much as it's used at Vintage Meadows.
Yeah.
Vintage Meadows is used a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the city park ones they're very old, so I don't think people.
And they're
it's
not, you
cracked
can't really
and-
play a game
Yeah,
there.
it's
They're just
cracked and-
hoops. But Vintage Meadows is used all the time.
Those are nice ones.
So, and I think you could easily put a second one there with minimal modifications. I think it's all set up. And that may really reduce that number considerably. So,
Well, we'll take a look at that. I mean, adding 2 to city park does, because the footprint gets bigger and it starts affecting other things that do drive up the cost. I mean, the getting rid of the concrete that's there now is 20,000.
yeah.
And then there's another, 20,000 for drainage.
I do think, things like drainage we're identifying with the basketball court project would be necessary, but it also has other benefits to the park. as
Sure.
well. So it's kind of, you're addressing other issues because you have to with the project, which kind of makes good sense.
Yeah.
But we'll bring back the discussion on the basketball court with the alternative. And we'll try to be able to give you some numbers to better inform your decision making on that. For the time being, given we're literally working on the budget, finalizing the draft budget for workshop. These will probably be the numbers you'll see, but as we, this should give us flexibility, at least if there are different decisions to, make those changes. But, we'll at least have a budget established to accommodate these three critical park and rec projects.
Well, before we move on, Hector, I don't know if you were provided with a copy of what we're looking at now. But do you have anything else to add to any of the projects that we're doing here or that we're looking at?
No, thank you. It looks great. I agree with the discussion that we're having. I think we should go back and, like David mentioned, this is just the preliminary numbers that we just received on some of the 3 large projects that we currently have outgoing here with the parks. And yeah, we'll definitely look at Vintage Meadows to see if there's adequate room there. And we'll just keep working forward.
Okay. Susie, did you find any money for us anywhere?
That hidden million.
I'll take that as a no.
No, I found impact fees.
Oh, okay.
One of the things is we are going to get some more impact fees from Baumgartner and then the Ascii Road apartments to start rebuilding that
Right.
slowly.
We're getting more than what we thought we were, or why are we getting more? Or just?
Well,
because of the-
When they make their payment
Oh,
into
okay.
the,
Right, the current fund, what is reported here is
what we have.
the current fund balance.
Oh, not the.
So there will be
the new
some
project.
replenishment as they.
So there's still Measure M monies that are coming in as well, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Just real quick on that. So we did receive the forecast for Measure M park funds for fiscal year 22-23. The forecast amount, which is based on sales tax, is just round numbers, $131,000. They actually gave it down to the penny, but the current guidance is, council direction was to split 50% staffing, 50% towards projects. So round numbers again, 65,000 staffing, 65 for park related projects. The 65, basically what we can afford with that is 3 part-time positions, non-benefited positions. We currently have 2 part-time positions, which I know Hector's eagerly waiting to July 1st so they can get them back because they've used their maximum hours. What we are evaluating, we're going to bring this forward to council, is whether we can convert those part-time positions to 1 full-time position. It comes in as more expensive than 3 part-time positions, but we're also concurrently negotiating an agreement with Sonoma County on the maintenance of River Park. And they've added restrooms and they want added service for those restrooms. So it's going to be an added demand for Hector's team. And then you add the plaza restroom that's added. You add pickleball, you add basketball.
And Porterfield.
And Porterfield has been, and we are, it's in the works that we are going to close on a major property acquisition, another 200 acres. If everything goes as planned, we'll be closing in January.
No, is that next to City Park?
That's next to City Park. So we fully anticipate there's, like Porterfield, there's a whole set of maintenance requirements. And so looking at that, I know that's, when you look at these projects, you look at River Park, you look at what's called Lighter Ranch currently. That's a big addition to the parks. Good stuff, all important projects. So we're trying to assess whether we can create this new classification of park aid, lowest cost position as possible, that we could use Measure M funds to fund the majority of that cost. It would require some general fund contribution, but recognizing that there's going to be a tremendous need if we do all this stuff for the maintenance requirements. And if we can get it funded to Measure M and the county's contribution for maintaining River Park, that will be a big help.
So two questions. The first one, it's news to me with City Park. What 200 acres are we speaking of there? Is this the vineyards on the?
It's actually a different property. It's called Lighter Ranch. It's the property that wraps around, goes kind of more south. It does include portions of North Porterfield Creek.
So is this going to be through the open
Open
space?
space, yeah.
Is there going to be an
Trying to
endowment
get
fund
it
that
here.
comes with that?
There has not been a discussion of an endowment
Because
fund.
what would be the benefit to the city to take it if there's no funding to get it? There's going to be needs. Well, we went through that with the Porterfield. And we end up with a $300,000 endowment,
Right.
as well as so we can put the bridge and get the trails and do all that. So it's really important that we don't take on something that's going to sit there and collect weeds.
Understood. We'll be bringing this back for closed session.
Okay.
And it was authorized in closed session, so that's why it's
I just want to make sure we talk about it. But the second thing, let me just think.
Staffing.
Well, I have
It's
one here, I
happening.
can go.
Go ahead.
Okay, so right now, on the River Park, I think the county's paying us 28,000 a year to maintain that. So, I mean, and that, we don't do a whole lot for 28,000, really. Do we?
Well, I'll let Hector speak to that,
Okay.
but they are asking to, especially with this new restroom that they
Yeah.
added, they had portalettes, basically.
Right. Mhm.
They have a maintenance schedule for that. They want it maintained 3 days, minimum 3 days a week. So that would be new, a new added, staff time requirements. And so as part of that, we would negotiate in a cost increase, and looking at what's the staff time to maintain that additional restroom, and Hector has really good timesheets to reflect how much time it takes to do some of the maintenance activities.
Good. In that contract, would there be a price increase based on inflation?
Yes.
Or is it, okay.
We're still negotiating, and ultimately it has to come back. When we have a draft, we'll put on this subcommittee of the coming council. We've been just missing times on scheduling a meeting to discuss.
Sure. Okay.
And so, I know with the restroom getting completed, there's a little bit of urgency to try to get that done. I don't know, Hector, is there anything you want to add in terms of your maintenance regime for the county's portion?
Thank you, David. Yeah, and thanks for bringing this subject forward. The proposed restrooms at the Sonoma County Cloverdale River Park, they are requesting for us to maintain the restrooms on a daily basis. We would be cleaning them, a full cleanup 3 days a week, and general cleanup and restocking and the toilet paper and paper towels every day, so I estimate it would take a park staff 5 hours a week, roughly, maybe a little more, to maintain those restrooms, especially since those are the only restrooms, from there all the way out here on the river park. So I anticipate they're going to get used a lot. So that's one of the possible incomes that I was looking into to see if we can try to fund a full-time employee to kind of help our Parks Department to tackle some of these new acquired projects. And one of the big project, there's a few, I guess, new acquire maintenance responsibilities that got handed down to us, and one of them was, the inmate crews. We used to get the inmate crews for a total of 8 weeks, and they would work on mainly vegetation management projects in the parks and L&L districts. And of course, as we know now we don't have that service. So that maintenance was then being performed by me and Miguel for now, which is a lot of work, and we're trying to focus and try to just prioritize the work to kind of give everybody a little bit of attention. And then later on, we then acquired the 300 acres of open space, which we have to monitor and work out there on a daily basis. And then now with the other acquisition of other projects. So I think it's, my responsibility as a park superintendent to I guess acknowledge some of these maintenance activities and come forward to you guys and ask for some assistance so we can, accommodate everybody and get all these projects done by hiring a full-time staff to help us with it.
We're going to bring this up in the budget session. Again, this is all part of the discussion in preparation for budget. And I just wanted, it's not agendized here, but we'll
Okay.
we'll be doing and bringing forward a job classification with a proposed salary schedule and a financial analysis on, you know, how the position can be funded with Measure M, and possibly, you know, covered in portion by the funding that's provided by the county. So that's kind of a preview of what we want to be able to bring forward, and again, kind of just again in the context of all the projects that we're bringing forward, you know, there's going to be an additional staff need for maintenance.
So just to, not to belabor it, but I just want to make it clear, I really think we do need that extra position. And I would also like to see us have in the budget line item for contract services or in addition to that, because there is a lot of vegetation management, a lot of weed whacking that needs to take place. And it's that to have our 1 or 2 parks guys spend days doing that doesn't make sense when we could maybe contract to bring in a big crew and knock it out in a day. And I tell you, the lighting and landscape district, they work so hard, but because of they're so diverse and just the 2 of them, it is starting to show where there's some things that typically would not be there had we had, and Hector and I have chatted a little bit about some of the weeds along the Ferber Park outline area there that typically wouldn't be there. And, but they just don't have the time. So we really got to take a look at the lighting and landscape districts. We have 7 of them. Are we paying enough? Are we able to contribute enough to do what we are asking them to do? I hope the answer is yes, but I don't know. If not, we need to revisit that. But the reality is they're doing a lot more and we're not giving them a lot more resources, and that's breaking it. So I know as we talk about lighting and landscape at our next budget tomorrow night, you know, we've been there before. We hear some people come in and they're very critical of it and they want more. So, and it's hard because I think our guys are giving them a lot, but they're getting too pulled away and they're not giving it. So it's not getting the same attention that it may have gotten had they had more help. So I think we really need to look at it. I am not opposed to putting some general fund money into the project as well. I think it makes sense. I mean, you know, we need the staff so they could do the job. So, I mean, if it gets down, I mean, I think coming in with the fees and all these, the county, that's all great. But if we need to supplement that with a couple, you know, X dollars in general fund, then we need to do that. That's the cost of doing business.
Right.
So I would say that at this point, so as you prepare the budget, hopefully you could put a plan together. Because I think the community wants the city to look nice.
Sure. And there's, you know, a couple of things that aren't mentioned here that are also, you know, kind of front of mind for the community, at least, is a dog park.
Yeah.
And a skate park. And so, you know, those are things too that we want to look for grants, of course, look for our partners to help maybe provide land or something else. But those again come with maintenance requirements. And those, and those, we think there's going to be a real opportunity for a dog park, which, you know, when ready, we'll bring that forward. So those are all things again that factor into the kind of the budgeting piece.
Well, I also think one of the things, and Hector, I know we've talked before about utilization of Wayne and his, I think it's called Economic Tree Service. He does
Yes.
work in the city park now, but getting to the lighting and landscape district, and I know it's not agendized, but I'm just wondering why we can't take a certain 1 or 2 of those lighting landscape districts and contract that out to an independent, like B&B Landscaping, my grandfather's garden, and whatever else we have in town, so that they're responsible for that lighting and landscape district. We still ultimately are responsible. We have a track record of what the revenue is, what the expenses are. So we should be able to understand what it would cost to contract it out. I'm not sure if that's possible, but Hector, that might also be some relief for you and your crew.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Vice Mayor Gus Walter. Yeah, and we one of the options which we are in the process of working with right now, is the SAC crews, which is, I guess they're probation, they're people that are on probation. And so we got them, we're actually just finalizing the contract with them for them to come in and perform a vegetation management at the cemetery. Right before the meeting, before this meeting, I got off the phone with their crew, with the crew manager, and as well as Sandy Dersham, the accountant technician. And it sounds like we got all the insurance documents in place. So this is the first time we're gonna work with this crew. So I'm hoping the experience is great and they're able to get in there and perform all that fuel reduction, vegetation management at the cemetery in preparation for Memorial Day coming up. So I'm thinking that that's one of the options that we can use. They're a little bit more expensive than the inmates crew, but from what I heard and I've seen in other projects, it sounds like they're a great asset for us to utilize in the later future for future projects.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about, and I get what you're saying. I think that would be great. But for the lighting and landscape to help alleviate some of those problems, it's just a sublease where somebody will come in and do the work for us. And but David, that's something I guess.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that, and you know, we can discuss that further and bring it back for if not next meeting, a future meeting when we have more information.
Thank you, Hector. Why don't we go ahead and
Thank you, guys.
Did we talk about pickleball?
No, we're gonna do that now.
Oh, okay, I thought this was all.
I don't see any
It's all
hands
blending together.
raised, so
We talked about everything.
let's move forward for the next item, which is item number 6E, establishment of a pickleball court project at Purple Park.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start on this item. At the direction of this subcommittee, staff sent a kind of an update out to the city council, providing a background and overview of the pickleball project. Provided in that email correspondence was a copy of the presentation that Mr. Rao provided to this subcommittee, which gives a very good overview of pickleball, including some of the details around the size of the court and the growing interest in sport of pickleball. Didn't receive any direct communication feedback in response to that communication. As such, we prepared a draft agenda report that's basically ready to go to council, subject to your support and approval. We've given you kind of an overview of the budget here. The one item that's not included in your packet that we would include for council's consideration is actually a CIP worksheet that just is kind of a summary and the details of the project, along with the cost. The purpose of the worksheet would be really to identify that that's how we're funding the project with capital improvement or park and rec impact fees, and that provides the connection for use of impact fees is that CIP worksheet. So we have that as a key component of the agenda report, requesting that the council, of course, approve the project as part of the capital improvement program, establish the project budget, which the agenda report outlines based on the bids that were received. Basically, Hector did an informal bid process for all the elements of the project. We confirmed with legal counsel that we were within the limits of informal bidding. So asking council to approve the CIP, establish the project budget, and then authorize staff to go ahead and accept those informal bids. So with that, I think we can really begin working with contractors. Some of the agreements would require council approval, so we just put those on the consent agenda for approval. Some are within my signature authority, for example, fencing, so we could execute a contract for that without council approval, so long as we have the budget in place. And then work with contractors to, identify a timeline for them to begin the work and start the project, assuming council supports the separate. So kind of a little bit of a two-step, but it would be bring to council, get authorization to kind of establish the budget, the project, and then bring immediately back those agreements for on consent to begin the work.
When will that go on the council report? Did you send an council agenda?
Well, I did, the draft agenda report didn't identify a time frame, but I think we could bring it forward in May, the first meeting in May. I think it's ready to go.
Okay, yeah.
But again, we wanted to bring, I think the direction was bring it back here. to make
Just
sure.
so we could touch it. more.
Yeah. And we could touch on the, Hector has done quite a bit of work coordinating with various contractors to get pricing for the different project elements. In the staff report, you'll see we broke it down really kind of into three components. One is the surface itself, the asphalted court surface, which is really the most expensive piece of it. The striping and the painting, which is again a separate contractor, and then the fencing. And so once that's done, you have a project. We identified a contingency just to make sure. We know there's going to be a little bit of there'll probably be some things there we might find as we do some of the site work. Realigning some of the drainage and making sure the pathway is built to ensure that it complies with ADA, and then providing for any kind of park furnishings, which we think would be nice. There was a picnic bench and or some nice benches for folks for spectators to be able to watch the sports or even just enjoy the park.
Well, I'd like to make a suggestion on that. And I was part of the process when we put the park benches along the boulevard, and they all face inward instead of facing the street. And the theory behind that is so that you can watch the pedestrian traffic and you can kind of strike up conversations rather than looking at cars. But I'm of the opinion now that we should change those, because I've seen where you actually can have seats on both sides, facing the street and facing inward. And we can take those benches that are now on Cloverdale Boulevard and move them to the pickleball court. I just think we should have thought about that further in 2004, I think, when we started that project.
So just to capture your request is to remove the benches from downtown and put them in the park.
Right, and then get new benches with seating on both sides.
Oh,
For
I see,
downtown.
I see. Okay.
Well, just blow off steam.
That makes it nice and complicated. Come back next year. on the plan. Yeah, actually I do. First of all, I just want to thank staff. Hector, thank you so much. Brad, thank you for all your work on this. Would it be possible? I would think the answer could be yes, hopefully. Do we have to keep going back and putting it on consent? Can't we lay it out, giving you the authority at the time we adopt it, giving you the authority at that time to move forward and sign those agreements? So it's one action, and then there's no need to come back. It's just, so we've authorized the project, we've authorized the amount, and gave you the authority to implement those contracts all in one swift thing. So it doesn't go 2 weeks and then it comes back under consent, and then 2 more weeks, it comes back under consent. We just blanket approve it, you move forward, get all your bids, get people moving, and let's move the project. Let's get it done. So
I think there is opportunity for that, and what we always have to address is getting the agreements in place and things like that, which we're kind of vision. We get the green light, we're going to be doing that, and then once we put it on consent, it's ready to go.
right, but there's 2 weeks between meetings, and what I'm thinking is, unless there's a wrinkle that needs to come back, I mean, we're all in agreement, assuming the council is, I think they will be, then there's no wrinkle, you just move it forward. Now, if there's a wrinkle, then you may want to say, well, we didn't anticipate this, we're going to go back and talk about it. That's how I like to see it, because if we met daily, I'd say no problem. We meet every 2 weeks. And we don't know, a meeting could actually be canceled for some reason, lack of a quorum. That moves it another 2 weeks. And months go by. I don't think, this is kind of a slam dunk kind of a project. Let's just get it approved. Let's move it forward and let's do it.
Well, let's take a look at that. I mean, we didn't envision there being any time lost. It's just a function of how grateful.
Right, but again, we're talking a total of 150,000 for the entire project, and I know it exceeds the fence. You mentioned just the one that you could sign outright. I think what I'm suggesting is that we say, based on these amounts, we authorize you, the city manager, to sign these agreements and move forward. So it's all done in one. That's how I like to see it come back.
I'm all
Are you for that?
It'll be more to the title. It'll be resolutions. So we'll have to figure out a package. It's a lot.
I think it's a lot. Make it easy. Don't make it complicated.
Councilmember Paul and I told both you and Kevin that we're leaving the end of the year, and we like the bathrooms in the plaza and pickleball before we leave.
We'll get that.
If you did that, that'd be great.
It'll happen.
So,
You excited, Brad?
Brad, did you want to add anything to this?
No, just Yahoo.
Okay. Hector, anything? I see you have your hand up.
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to take a few seconds to thank Brad Horrell, who's present there with you guys. All that work that we did to acquire all these proposals and bids from different contractors wouldn't have been possible without Brad's help. So with his, he's got a lot of contacts, and we were able to contact and get a lot of good feedback and numbers from his contacts. So thank you, Brad, for that.
Welcome. So, Chair, if I could, Brad, you may want to comment on, I included afterwards, I sent it, went out in the packet, an email from Patrick Henson, who was regarding pickleball, and I copied you on it. Did you get that, Brad?
No.
You didn't get that? Because I copied you on it, but it went out to in our packet, and I'll leave this with you, Brad. But what it was is, he was making reference, he's talked to you, he told me on this in the past about the feasibility pickleball. They built a pickleball complex as a tourist destination, and what a contributor it was to the local economy. So, and it lays it all out, and this is a huge project. And he said they did this for $100,000 investment. Well, a couple things. One is it's in the state of Georgia, which I think labor and materials maybe just, and property maybe slightly cheaper than it is here. So I think that 100 may be a little more, but I just wanted to acknowledge this and see if you wanted to make any comments. I was not aware.
No, I think that's Patrick's pipe dream myself.
Okay, he had suggested, he
Yeah.
mentioned he talked to you about it, and I told him that you were going to be here. So I'll
Yeah,
start
most
with
of
you.
these large facilities like this are privately owned. And they're clubs, and you join, you pay a monthly fee, you pay a fee to use the court. So the municipal one would be amazing, but probably as close as there is what they have at Finley.
Yeah.
And that's just a hodgepodge, it's a mess.
I just wanted to mention this for the record that he did submit.
Yeah.
this. Okay, well, that's all I have. Mr. Chair.
I don't see any other questions or hands out there.
Just keep
So
going. Yeah.
at this point, why don't we go ahead and move on to the standard and continued items? But before we do that, because I want to blow right through that, I have to leave. I think Councilmember Fowler needs to leave. So can we talk about future agenda items or good of the order? Vanessa, anything good of the order?
The order is good.
Okay, Hector, Darren, anything from your group?
I had one comment earlier. I had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. You just gotta interrupt and yell.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to go back to the plaza when you guys were talking about the expansion into that the dirt gravel lot. Just something to keep in mind, that also used to be a service station, and there could be tanks underneath that land. We did find a lot of tanks when we did the boulevard reconstruction that were unknown. That service station was an old service station that actually used to be owned by the Catarellis years and years ago. But just a heads up on that.
And Mayor, I just, while we have Darren here, under future agenda items, I would like to bring forward a discussion item on establishing what's called an operator in training, or OIT, for our water department. That we do have a classification within our existing,
I'll plug it in. I got it.
within our existing MOU with classified. So, it would be an expense for our water enterprise. But I think Kevin, it's plugged in. I just don't think the cord is plugged into the power cord. There is. So we need to look at the cost to the enterprise. And there's also some opportunities to utilize existing staff to get them trained in wastewater. So I'll work with Darren to bring that forward as a package.
Can you bring it to the budget workshop?
We can certainly, we'll be prepared to bring that up, or at least talk about it. I don't know if we'll have a full, a picture of what that looks like, but it is an area that we do want to, we'd like to look at, in the water department, everything going on, especially with the drought, all the reporting. There's also, we have staffing needs there, and I think an OIT program is a way to help at least address some of our needs, but also prepare us for the future. That sound good, Darren?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what most treatment plants do. They have an OIT program to bring people in, get them trained up. Hopefully they make it their career, they stay here, and they gain all the institutional knowledge from those of us that retired before them. So that's kind of how I gained a lot of my knowledge, and Trevor's gained a lot of his for me. And we want to keep that wealth of knowledge living on for the citizens of Cloverdale, and train up people that want to make water and wastewater treatment a career. We also, being a small agency, it's very important for our operators to cross-train to be able to cover at the other plants, because you only have 2 operators at each plant. So that, like David said, it would provide staff more flexibility to get that cross-training completed, having more staff to pick up the slack.
Well, thank you, Darren. And yeah, I agree. There's a lot of departments within the city that are really understaffed. And your department and Jay's department, are keys that we really have to look at and make sure we have a succession of management in those areas. So you've got our support. Shannon, did you have anything to share with us before we go into standard and continued items? Good to the order.
I have a future agenda too.
Okay.
Put it on.
Okay, well, why don't you share with us? She might join us in a second. Go ahead.
Two things, David, I didn't see on here. The safe route to school plan for the Ascii Road housing project. That's really a critical program. I think we really need to be getting something together. It's got to be part, I hope, with the budget. We need to look at that, and grants, looking for funding. So that's going to happen, and it's going to probably happen, within the next 18 months, maybe. I don't know, but it gives us a little breathing room, but not a lot. And we need to have a plan, because we're going to have a lot of kids going to school, going across that. We need to be prepared. So I really think that's kind of needs to be on the burner. We need to look at. The other thing is, we talked about, and I think you mentioned that you already signed for the traffic signal at Cloverdale Boulevard at Treadway Santana. And I didn't see it on here for an update, so I just put it.
Oh, yeah, I did. I think it may have been my mistake, but I took that off the standing agenda just because it's underway.
Yeah, I just kind of like to keep it till we kind of
Okay.
know, until it's done.
Right,
So we
okay.
can update.
Well, I'll put that back on, so, I mean, it may be, well, I don't know if it'll be completed yet, but, I'll.
It's not yet, I can tell you. that.
No, it's not. I received an update this week. They're doing the, what is called the signal programming to accommodate
Okay.
that. So it is in progress, but I'll add it back on. So
Yeah, just so we could keep in the loop as it progresses. Yeah, if you could, thank you. I appreciate that update as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
well then, why don't we go ahead and move to item number 7. David, please, the time is of the essence. Just share with us changes. in
Okay.
Any one of these.
Yeah.
And then we'll circle back and ask questions if we have, okay?
Right.
No changes, let's not talk about
I
it.
mean, mainly, really what I want to, the main item on the standing items that I wanted to get an update on was because a lot of these things we've talked about in the context of these other agenda items. But I think that the critical item that I want to give an update on is item number 5, the update on the repair and asphalt project. And Vanessa has been doing a fair amount of work in preparation for that project. She's did some marking to identify both where the sidewalk repair would be critical, as well as the asphalt repair. Prepared a kind of an informal bid spec, and you reached out to three contractors or 4 contractors. So Vanessa, if you want to just give our subcommittee members an update.
Let's see, so the 4 contractors, I'm gonna lose it here, but let's see, so interested persons included Regi, Duran Paving, Argonaut Constructors, and Marvel Paving out of Santa Rosa. I know we try to get diligently to get 3 bids for informal process, so I'm jazzed that at least 4 contractors expressed an interest. I've got it marked out there. I've got them kind of categorized: paving, sidewalk, gutter. I'm looking at some high spots to grind them down. Protecting existing utilities and facilities that are out there. Of course, there's a sewer clean out right in the area of sidewalk removal. And then traffic control. It's going to be the contractor's responsibility to keep everybody safe and let us know what they're doing. We've got permission from the property owner to block his rear driveway, at least for the day. And I've asked for bids, I want to say by questions by the end of day on May 6th. No, I guess quote by May 6th. I'm sorry. Questions by end of next week. And so hopefully by May 6th, we have some quotes and get an idea of what that looks like and move forward.
So.
Yeah, the idea would be just timing works out, we'll put it back on the agenda just with the recommendation, and then we can bring it to council. I think this kind of speaks to what I would recommend that we also discuss the budget is establishing a line item in the budget. We talked about it with senior staff for what do we land on? Vanessa, as the name is street maintenance.
Pavement maintenance.
Pavement maintenance. And we kind of look at this as an example of kind of a project. There's the big projects like 4th Street and then even look at it Clark Street, for example, is kind of our big SB1 funded projects. But there's these areas like we have on East 2nd where it's kind of a smaller standalone project, and there's a number of those around town that we've identified. And so to accommodate being able to carry out these projects is having a line item in the budget of say $100,000 every year, just to do kind of these asphalt maintenance repair on a smaller scale. And I think that would be ideal because it gives us at least the budget resources to be able to tackle these smaller projects. Because it's the big ones; those are going to be more formal, multi-year projects. But there's every year we go out and we can get some of these repairs done that need to be completed. So kind of part of the budget workshop is going to be plugging in a budget number I think a good starting point is 100,000, but we can kind of, I mean, you know, the needs are obviously much more significant than that, but that's a good starting point. And, you know, if it gives us the ability to get these contractors to, you know, to perform these repair works and make a difference.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent idea. I really do. You know, there's two roads we're going down. One that you have to just tear out and redo the entire street. And then there's those that are fairly new, but they're breaking down. That if we could salvage those, if we do some repairs and slurry seal and set them in. And I really think we need to be focused on those because in 5 or 6 years, they're going to go into the next category that needs to be redone. So we really should have a plan, trying to get maybe grant funding as we have this grant writer looking for infrastructure grants, but also have a fund that we can start preserving streets that are still sound. You could still save them, but they're going to need some work, and we need to start that process. So I do support that. I think we got two avenues here.
Well, a good example is the intersection of Third and Cloverdale Boulevard as you come south from the library. You hit that stop sign and there's a big bow in the road, and supposedly you have to dig all that up, replace it, something like that, would probably fit in that $100,000 range.
Yeah.
But just a quick question, and let's talk about that Second Street project next to Eagle Tech. Were there soft costs associated with that, referring to an engineer's study, or is it just we write it up and give it to Reggie or somebody to do?
The soft costs are my time to kind of write that spec and ask for the solicitations, right?
So I'm not sure 100,000 is enough. Maybe we ought to sell it too. I mean,
Well, you know, I think honestly, I think 100K is an absolute minimum starting point. And so doing some outreach to various people in the county, talking about ongoing striping maintenance and these various matters. You know, 100K is really, it's a start. It's certainly a start. You know, 150K is better. 200K would be a very robust, you know, if we talk about kind of an annual ongoing. So we're phrasing that as pavement maintenance. I think the intent is to include striping maintenance as it comes up. But it is, you know, like you were saying earlier, costs are going up. And they're not, I don't know, there's hope they'll come back down, but I don't know that that'll be by much. And so, you know, to keep up, it probably would be more in the order of about 200K. Whether that's feasible or not, you know, that's
And
a
again, that's
discussion,
where we look
but-
at you and Shannon and Susie for guidance. Yeah, I mean, we know the problems there. We know we need to put money. How do we do that? Where's the money coming from? And maybe we front load it 1 year. If we have a little bit extra funds, we put 200,000 to kickstart it with maybe 100,000 for the second year, if that's how but we just need to do it. It needs to get done.
well,
And
yeah, you're absolutely right. And the thing that we have to remember, especially staff, and I know they know that, is there's always a budget adjustment. I mean, if we have a surplus sitting in our general fund and we're shy 20,000 for a good paving project, you know, budget adjustment might work. So.
good, thank you.
So that's really,
That's it.
Chair, that's kind of the critical update. I mean, all things we're continuing to make progress on. I know we did also, it was a critical project for the subcommittee. Last meeting was the item 2, the update on the traffic pedestrian safety at South Cloverdale Boulevard. I know I took a look specifically at the signal on Dry Creek Road, which is a dedicated pedestrian crossing. That one actually is a full signal. It's a full traffic signal.
But it doesn't, it stays green until you set it.
It's a full traffic signal, but it's activated by a pedestrian. And so that one really is just a full signal.
And they got one in Santa Rosa.
Well, let's see, are you talking about Healdsburg?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the Healdsburg crossing, they've kind of beefed it up for a couple of reasons. One, it's immediately adjacent to a future smart main line. The other thing is they're saying it the signal runs in coordinated signal timing with 2 other nearby intersections. So it is tied into other stuff. But they were saying that they thought the winning contract was around $250K for that.
So, and I know Santa Rosa has one.
So Santa Rosa's got one, and they actually sent me the bid summary on that. The engineer's estimate was 236. Their low bid was 237.5K. But that is, and I've got some, they sent some lovely little printouts. I can pass these around, but kind of what the pedestrian sees.
No, Vanessa, is this the
and
one
what
on
the-
Mendocino Avenue?
This is
Yeah.
on,
Yeah,
I believe
that's
so.
a Chick-fil-A.
I believe so. Yeah, and here's kind of a cartoon that shows what those look like.
Hmm.
Got a couple. Ways.
So we're looking slightly north of 200,000 for. Well, then, David, I think you had mentioned that there might be another problem with that being an intersection.
Well, I think,
Well-
I guess the question is, do you really do a full, you can do a signal there, but then you have to really signal
The side streets,
the side streets.
Hillsborough Avenue and Clark.
I think, but we would have to, I think, commission a traffic study like that, W-Trans, do an analysis of what that would look like. Because it's a little different in terms of Dry Creek and this, because those are more, it's a pedestrian only, it's not an intersection per se.
But the feedback was that the city of Santa Rosa has seen much better compliance with vehicles stopping
Yeah.
and pedestrians not stepping into the path of the vehicle than with the flashing beacon that was there previously. They also said that they did a significant outreach event, and he sent me a link to some materials, but they had extensive outreach to educate pedestrians and motorists on the use of the signal. So it's multifaceted.
It works well. I was like, when I go into Hillsborough, usually I go off Dry Creek and it really, I mean, you stop, I mean, it's there. And I see what you're saying, David, but they do have, it is a arterial stop sign on Hillsborough Avenue coming on this boulevard. If it was red, they're not going to make right turn. I would think,
Almost like a,
yeah,
yeah.
because they already
One of these.
have to stop. It's, but, you know, I look at the statistics that we have and, you know, with one fatality, one major injury, one minor, well, one moderate, 2 minor injuries within the last 12 years. That's a lot in that intersection. And so it really is a problem. And something we need to do something. And I really think, I don't know what that something is. I really like that concept because it seems to work really well. But I think we need to do something in this year's budget is where I'm going with this. I don't think we can kick that can down. I don't want to be sitting up there on the dais and having another fatality take place and having families come in. We've been through that twice now. And we put we put almost $100,000 into that and we ended up ripping it out. It was a waste. So to me, that sounds like it's a very reasonable price when you think about what we paid for what we got already. But this is really an important intersection. We really need to fix it.
Well, I'm just wondering, and I don't know what the legalities are, if we unscrew those yellow lights and put red ones in there. And then we did an extensive educational program for both in, both in Spanish and in English, how to use that intersection. I don't know if that would be
Well, I
sufficient.
don't think you could, if you hit the button or cross the thing, it becomes red right now. And that would, you've got to have
Well,
that cycle.
Yeah, I mean,
In other words, those
give
are
me
set
that
up.
what we have, is what I'm saying. To change those lights so that they're red, hits the button, waits a couple of seconds for cars to slow down and then walk. And also it's the education department, you hit the button, it's red, that doesn't mean you don't look around. I mean.
Well, and I
I'm
think what
talking
you're
from a
talking
traffic
about,
safety and law enforcement standpoint. You just can't go immediate red.
Right. And I think what you're talking about is detailed in this little cartoon here. There is, push the button and then it flashes.
Mhm.
But the pedestrian is still told to wait. And then the vehicle, it turns yellow with a prepare to stop and the pedestrian is still told to wait. And then you have the red lights come on. So there is a little bit of advance warning to motorists.
But I think what we heard, the direction from subcommittee is to include some funding in the budget to look at these solutions. I think, we, see if Susie's, looks like Susie may have left, but I think look at our traffic impact fees.
Yeah.
And see if we, at least set aside some funding, because what that modification is gonna look like, whether it's, more a signal, a better signal, or modifying the existing signal. It's gonna require some evaluation, of course, so.
I think if you look, it would be interesting, I'd like Susie to do some background on it to see what we've spent to date on this. I think it's going to be well over 150,000 and we have really nothing. So it's really unfortunate that the first one, David, was a reaction when we had a fatality and we wanted to do something. And that's what a traffic engineer suggested at the time. And it wasn't the best suggestion. And, so we're sitting here kind of back to square one, but we've had another major accident with several. So I really think we need to just put money in the budget, maybe to do the study, but also to implement the solution. That's where I'm going with it. I just don't want to study how we're going to fund it, put it on the shelf for next year or 2 years, since we're doing a 2-year budget. We really need to have the money to do the study and do the fix. So that's where I'm at with that. I really put a high priority on that because of the statistic. And also, Vanessa, if you maybe can check with the Office of Traffic Safety to see if there's any possible funding available for something like this, because this is a school crossing as well. And there may be some funding available. They do typically have funding for these things, the Office of Traffic Safety. So we may be able to get some grant funding because of the statistics we could show in the school proximity.
Plus, it's going to be a medical facility there as well.
So we can probably put together a good case to give at least some funding and since we're doing the 2-year budget, maybe we can, the second year have that all there to implement.
All right, let me just go around the room and see, Darren, anything on the standing and continued items that you would like to talk about? And Hector, the same with you? Vanessa, Kevin as well? Anything? Hector?
Vice Mayor Gus, I'm good. Thank you for asking.
I'm good too. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, City staff.
I didn't mean that.
Oh,
Thank you. Anything?
Nope, nothing, I can't wait.
Okay.
So I just
Yeah.
want to thank Vanessa for doing the research on that. Thank you so much. I look forward to just a quick update next meeting on our grant, the $3+ million, and also the ARPA funds and how we're going to revisit those, because a lot of the capital improvement that we talked about with the ARPA funds were going to be for those projects that we got the grant funding for. So to revisit those things, and maybe during our budget workshop, that would be a good time to maybe spend a half hour or so talking about that. Yeah, because that's significant.
Laurie, anything on your end? Okay.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. You're welcome. Have a good evening.
I just wanted to thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, folks, and meeting is adjourned, and when do we plan on hooking up around May 24th? Okay, thank you.
Perfect. 3:30.
I was going to talk a little bit, but I'm not going to, about the 7th Street. Again, yesterday morning, I was walking there, and I'm looking at all these horseshoe.
That too.
Never been used, they haven't been used.
Check out my calendar.
It's almost like